Okay, guys, here's what I want you to do. We're going to try something out. I don't know how well it's going to do. This is a prompt exercise. If you're not aware what a prompt is, I'm going to give you like a sentence or a word or whatever. You're just going to write as many words as you can that pop into your mind around that. Not very long, maybe 3, maybe 5, but just write a couple of words that pop into mind when I say the words that I say.
Does a haiku count?
No. So the first thing we're going to do is start off with this one. These are mostly hockey related. In fact, they're basically all hockey related. But the first one is enforcer.
Tough and fighter.
I have Brian McGradden, no hands, and fighter.
No hands. I like that.
I have George Larocque, goalie fight, fist.
Nice. Okay, your second prompt here is hockey slang.
This is a clean show, right? Like,
try to keep it clean.
I just put one. I got sieve.
Go hard, for the boys, slapper, top ched, pigeon.
I have hoser and letterbuck.
Hoser and letterbuck. All right, and finally, the very last one, the Canadian division. Yeah.
I have fun, I have cold, and I have all Canadian playoff matchups.
Oilers, hard, North, Scotia, Ottawa, and tough.
Interesting that you put Ottawa and tough together.
Of course, I have Leafs, Canada, and high scoring.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm going to go with temporary and the reason we're here today. All right. Let's start it off. Delayed Offside. All right, guys. Welcome to the pod. I'll let everyone do a quick round introduction. I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Sunjay.
All right, well, we're starting today off. It's a special day. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the U.S. It is also the anniversary of Willie O'Ree's first hockey game for the Boston Bruins, where he played and broke the color barrier, essentially, for hockey players. And he's going to get a jersey retirement out of Boston. So this is a pretty significant thing announced today, and it's kind of part of the celebration that's occurring right now around hockey. What do you think about the contribution he's made? And do you think like the jersey retirement is a solid type of tribute for someone who's done this thing? Let's start with you, Adam.
I think a jersey retirement's a really nice way to celebrate breaking the color barrier. I don't know. What else could you do? Could you raise a banner? That might be kind of cool. You don't want to kind of wear out the banner raisings, but that's a huge one. That's one banner, right? So that's kind of what I think. I think it's great, and I think it needs to be done and celebrated in some way, shape, or form.
Is this something that should be done by more teams than just the Bruins, Sunjay?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you look back at like other players who broke the color barrier, I know in baseball, I think it's once a year they all wear the number 42 for Jackie Robinson. So, I think it would be kind of like a neat tribute if they kind of retired the number or just raise a little bit more awareness for it. I know the number 42. I don't even follow baseball, but unfortunately, I couldn't tell you which number Willie O'Ree wears or wore. So I think that would be a good thing. It would raise a little bit more awareness because as much as we like to think that some of these issues have been in the past, you could look back at last year and see Akeem Alou and kind of the treatment that he got and see that these issues, unfortunately, are still going on today. So I think it would be great to a little bit more awareness and, maybe just have something every arena or every game that's played on this day, just a little like introduction ceremony or video tribute before every game, I think would be terrific.
It's interesting too, like even when you point out it was Matt Dumba was having issues getting his car moved in the U.S. for kneeling at the anthem game. So these things kind of still exist and go around. Dylan, do you have anything to add to this?
I think it was touched on fairly well. Like he's a pioneer in the sport and should be celebrated. And I'm curious if this will lead to other celebrations like Francis Hakamoose. He just recently passed away. Maybe he deserves a jersey retired as well for his contributions.
I think that's a great way to put it
Yeah.
up. We're going to move on there and take a shift to some news that occurred a little bit longer in the week, or at least near the start of the week, which was the surprise news that Evander Kane has announced that he had filed for bankruptcy. So he's apparently around, this is information that came out from The Athletic. If you don't have a subscription, I'd suggest you go there. They actually have a lot of really great stories and information. But
Yeah, it's great.
they put out the information here that he had $26.8 million in debt, and his income was negative $91,131 a month was what his current losses are. And he lists over 7 dependents. And the big shock was coming is that there was something in there about opting out, as in how to opt out of his contract depending on it. Like if I can't play for some medical reason, then the debtors can't take my money because I won't be playing.
Yeah,
and
I think he mentioned like his daughter.
Elbows.
He mentioned his daughter is the reason he might want to opt out. He just recently had a daughter that was born, so in case concerns over COVID.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's an interesting point there. So this is a pretty big, shocking moment, but it's not a surprise in sports. What were your thoughts on this event occurring there, Ryan?
Well, I mean, it's sad news. You never want to see someone having to declare bankruptcy. Unfortunately, it has happened in sports before. I mean, he's getting paid $7 million per year, so I mean, unfortunately, he's spending over the amount that he is making and wasn't very careful with his money. And then obviously he wasn't expecting to be paid less this year, right? Like they're losing 20% of salary to escrow, and then another 10%, I believe, is being deferred. So, you are expecting to get $7 million per year, and then all of a sudden you're losing out on some money, and you're already owing money, and he had to do what he did.
What do you guys think the impact this is going to have carrying on to the season? Like, we know when Jack Johnson found out that this is a little bit of a different situation, that his parents had kind of squandered his fortunes and his life, that was one of those things that I don't know how much it carried on to the ice, but I don't know if Jack Johnson's ever been the same player since. I guess the question I have towards you guys is, do you think this is going to affect Evander Kane throughout the next couple of years, even this season or so far?
Absolutely. I think it's going to put more pressure on him to have to play well, to earn greater contracts, to start like whittling away at the debt that he's got. It's also kind of a surprise because, I believe there's sessions that they have, that these kids have when they come into the NHL, talking about money responsibility and stuff like that, because they come into large amounts of money so soon. So it's kind of concerning to see that happening.
Well, and how hard is it going to be for him to focus on hockey when he's having to also handle all of this debt and trying to pay it off?
Yeah,
right?
and that's,
how is he going to be able to put his focus straight on hockey?
And that's what I'm saying is like he'll be playing for his next contract, right? And he's got to perform well. And how easy is it going to be for him to, play well and put that pressure on himself? It's not going to be easy at all. Right?
Yeah, but like at the same time, you guys, you don't just go bankrupt one day. Like this has been something that's clearly been happening for a while now. So
he's been digging.
So to say it's going to like essentially weigh on him just now because of this is that point. Plus he's got a long-term contract. Like the likelihood of him making a big contract after this is probably close to zero. Like he is probably done at the end of this contract or near the end of this contract, where he'll either get bought out and have to do a little bit or retire. Like I don't see that playing hard now. Like no one's going to look 7 years back and be like, hey, you played hard 7 years ago, we might as well pay you out. I just don't see it. Like I think he's in trouble with that part of it, but I really don't know what happens in these situations. I'm not sure what he can do to actually improve things.
I think he'll be forced to play a little bit longer, whether it's in the NHL playing until his 40s or in the KHL or someplace else. Unfortunately, like for him, hockey is the only place where he can make that kind of coin. I know he wanted to fight that one YouTube guy who turned boxer.
Yeah,
I think we know now
Logan
why
Paul.
he wanted to.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's so
another
insistent.
thing,
Yeah, that would have been a big payday. So, maybe he'll have to like try going to boxing after his hockey career is done and make some money that way. But I definitely don't think he'll just retire. Like I think he'll stay on, and you'll see him in Europe, and he'll be playing until his 40s, unfortunately, because he'll have to play in order to pay all this off.
Yeah.
No, that's fair. It's an interesting time, and it's just some of those things. And I highly suggest to people, if you haven't seen it, I think you can find it on YouTube now. But ESPN did a documentary on athletes going broke, and it's specifically entitled "That Broke." And they talked to different celebrities, whether it was Bernie Kosar or I'm trying to remember some of the other ones, Rice, and just about how things worked and the things that caused stuff to occur, like guys just having family, friends, things they were spending on, just thinking money would never disappear, and how it eventually just caught up to them all one day in different ways. And honestly, it's a really good insight into that. And Evander Kane, I think, is one of those those celebrities where, like, you can see Tim visiting here, one of those celebrities where it's like there's been thoughts that there's been issues around this for a while, whether it's the gambling lawsuit that had occurred prior to this, or whether or not it's I don't know if anyone else is watching Ryan Pilon right now on the screen, but he is just like, you seem like you're typing a program. Am I boring you, Ryan?
No, not at all. I'm listening. I'm just looking into something.
Tim's not impressed with this right now, buddy. Just staring at stuff. But anyways, it's been out there that he, like that picture when the lockout occurred and he was in Vegas, just flashing up the cash, like things like that have been kind of following. And I think when he did those things prior, and then this happens, people are along the lines are like, hey, you shouldn't have done that. Whether or not that's really important or not, I do think that is a part of the reason why there is some certain heat towards this player for when those things occurred.
Well, I know him and Byfuglien had some stuff going on in Winnipeg.
There's a picture of Byfuglien flipping, or him like tapping Byfuglien, and Byfuglien just walking by, flipping him off, which is
yeah, like they're not good friends. And Byfuglien was the captain or assistant captain of that team. You hear stuff about him taking all his clothes and throwing them in the shower after practice, and you know,
it's the last straw.
Yeah. So Byfuglien seems like a pretty relaxed guy off the ice. So to get him riled up, I mean, on the ice, he's pretty riled up, but off the ice, he seems like a pretty calm guy.
We're going to move on to some other things that have been in the news today. Speaking of people being riled up, Pierre-Luc Dubois has been the focus of trade talk in Columbus for the last little while, and with good reason. Essentially, he's the number one center. They offered him a long-term contract. He wouldn't sign it. He signed only a 2-year contract. But things have been kept pretty close to the chest for everything. And then all of a sudden, Torts was on radio, and Torts was speaking about how this was, or they were asking him about what's going on with Pierre, and he said, he hasn't told us why he wants out. He hasn't said a word why he wants to leave. And so Torts kind of put it out there that it's on him more. So what do you think of this move done by this coach to do that publicly, Ryan? What are your feelings about that?
Are you surprised? It's Tortorella.
That'd be
I'm not.
That's my answer.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Nothing
I didn't ask if you were surprised. I said, what do you think about the move?
I don't know. I don't know if it helps the situation at all. I honestly don't know why Pierre-Luc Dubois wants out. I mean, he hasn't come out and stated it. And I mean, Tortorella basically said the same thing, is that he has no idea why either. So I'm just kind of confused as to what the whole situation is. Like, he just signed a 2-year contract, $5 million per. Is he not happy with how those negotiations went? Did he expect to receive more? Was there some ill feelings on his side? I hear sometimes the contract signs for RFAs can sometimes be a little nasty. Maybe he got some feelings hurt, or does he want out of the market? Does he not like the Columbus market? Or does he not like Tortorella? I'm really not too sure. I don't think Tortorella coming out and saying that is going to, I mean, obviously Dubois has already made up his mind that he wants to go. So, I mean, does it really help? I don't think there was any, bridging the gap or anything like that going to happen. So I don't think him coming out is going to make Dubois want to leave any more than he already does.
Is this just a thing where Torts essentially wears down guys, or is it just like his motivating tactics, or do you think there's something else going on as to why this player wants out? Anyone can answer. It's not just Pilon with his typing away, not paying attention.
Well, it very well could be right shelf life of a coach, and Tortorella has the shelf life, and there are some players that don't like playing for him. At the same time, you have a job to do, and if you want out, there's got to be some sort of discussion as to why. Like, it can't be just, I want to play in a better market. There's got to be something deeper than that.
Do you think Tortorella really doesn't know, or he's?
I agree, Pilon. I do, and I don't think he was wrong commenting. Like there was no malicious intent behind him saying anything. He was stating a fact. Like he's coming to the dressing room. He's told the team he's not happy here. He wants out. He has not indicated why. And we're looking for that.
Yeah, I think as a fan base, we're looking for that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, someone has to know. Like, it can't just be Dubois that knows. Like, he must have talked to the GM at the very least. And how can Tortorella not ask the GM what's going on here?
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of negotiating trades. But the man who does probably know is Sunjay.
Why does he want to leave? That's a good question. I think maybe he just wants a fresh start. Maybe he thinks that he's undervalued, getting $5 million in Columbus for only a 2-year deal. He was taken in the 2017 draft or 2016 draft. The Matthews draft, he was taken.
Right.
So, if you look at some of those other players on their second contract, they're all making 7+. And so maybe it just came down to contract. And, maybe he feels like playing in Columbus, he can't put up the numbers that some of the other players are putting up because Tortorella has more of a defense-first system. So maybe he wants to get a fresh start and put up some more numbers like some of the other players in that draft.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because there's lots of talk and that he would blossom in a different way other places, but he's so good where he is. It's interesting. We usually don't leave a good thing, and they do have a good thing going. They've been in the second round here, or they've at least made it to they beat
Tampa, then they beat Toronto. Yeah,
they beat Toronto. They've had a pretty impressive run here at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at this right now, because honestly, it sounds like trades are going to happen, and there's a potential for this to occur. Now, I don't think this is happening anytime this year, and given the fact that COVID and situations, I think trading star players is really, 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 really unlikely. So where do you guys see him as potential landing spots for where this guy could go and where he should be? We've touched on this before, but I think it's worth revisiting again.
I'll probably just say the same thing as I keep hearing the Dubois for Line A trade speculation. So I'll just say that, like I said before, where there's smoke, sometimes there's fire, and maybe he ends up in Winnipeg.
There's also some talk about Montreal as well. And I know one trade that was kind of put out there in speculation was Suzuki and a pick for Dubois. I don't think Montreal bites with that. Suzuki's been just way too good.
He's been really good this year. I think that'd be a mistake personally.
I agree.
I'm going to say New York, the Rangers. It's an out there one, but I think the fit would be there. There's a lot of great young talent in New York. They're rebuilding. They could maybe throw some draft picks or whatever at Columbus. I haven't heard any rumors about it, but I just think it would be a good fit. And he goes from wearing the Blue Jackets to the blue shirts with the Rangers. So it's a natural fit.
I think you're interesting your points about Suzuki. Suzuki's having a great season right now. No one knows what Suzuki's ceiling is, but I don't think people really know what Dubois' ceiling is yet either. I just know that's going to cost you less for Suzuki up front here for the next little while. And if you take someone like Dubois, you might open that window to win right now, but you're going to have to pay a lot to keep him. And there's no guarantee he's going to want to stay with you any more than anybody else. So that would probably have to be negotiated as part of it. I think your best bet to still trade him is that you don't trade him in your division. So you get him the heck out of the East. And my guess is still that the best spots to have him will be people that have lots of depth on players or prospects. And that still seems likely to be Anaheim or the Kings, who really have just a plethora of players available. And Kings are tight for cap space, so I imagine someone has to go both directions. But I don't know. I think that's your most interesting bet. There's no way you're trading him to someone you have to see him all the time. I just can't see that happening right now. Kekalani won't have it happen.
Do you think Pierre-Luc Dubois, Montreal might want him because of the francophone? They seem to really. I would think.
But have they lately? I know back in the past, in the 90s and 80s, and even before then, they got a lot of players. But if you look at recent history, Vincent Lecavalier was a player that always you heard he was going to end up in Montreal, but he never did. And he was a free agent a couple times, and it just never happened.
But Lecavalier might not have wanted to go to Montreal. I can't remember.
That's true, and it's probably a lot of pressure.
Right.
If you went to Saskatchewan, didn't want to go to Quebec. I don't know.
And I don't know if Dubois wants to go to Montreal, but we were just talking. Why would Montreal want to make this move?
Yeah,
Montreal
because
wants
Suzuki maybe they do. And I just, maybe the fact that he's Francophone helps with that matter, with them wanting to bring in a French Canadian.
The thing you have to remember is Bergeron is not scared to make crazy trades. Like he traded away he traded for Weber, traded away Subban. He made the trade for Drouin, which maybe hasn't worked out quite the way they thought it would, but those are big trades. Like he pulls the trigger, so he's willing to do those things. You can wave your hand all you want, but the fact that he went out and got those players is pretty ballsy. So I'm saying if he wants a guy, he'll do it.
I wasn't waving my hand about that. No, I was waving my hand.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, fans, if you're just listening to this, Adam's being a jerk with his hands.
Acquiring Drouin. Oh my God. No, not.
No, it hasn't really worked out. Drouin hasn't.
And the trade for
Drouin has not been a great purchase. He has not
I
been
hate when mom and dad fight, Ryan?
we're agreeing.
I like it. It's entertaining.
Yeah.
Him and I are literally agreeing right now. We're literally saying the same thing. It is
the Canadian standoff.
It has not worked out, man.
You already mentioned the Weber PK trade too, right?
Man, people thought that trade didn't work out.
I thought that was going to be a terrible trade, but it's turned out they've won that trade.
Yeah, it's funny. Adam, I don't know if you're talking, but you've definitely froze like 5 minutes ago. So all I have is a face while the rest of us keep talking.
Look at his nerves just standing perfectly still.
Yeah, you're frozen, man.
You look at the part where you got slapped in the face, but where the hand stopped here for like at least 5 minutes there. So moving on there. Speaking of stuff interestingly going on, looking for trades, there's been a lot of conversation just off the start here that a lot of teams are contacting Florida if they're interested in Barkov. Now, Barkov is a player that if you're a hockey fan, you're probably familiar with, but realistically, most people don't have a view as to how good this player is or is. So like, what do you think is the interest there? Like, well, I think we know what the interest there is, but why do you think this has become a thing all of a sudden that people are looking at Barkov?
It could be Florida's underperforming. They have Bobrovsky for a huge contract, and maybe with everything going on with no fans in attendance, or I think Florida's allowing a little bit of fans in attendance, but revenue's way down, and Florida doesn't generate a ton of revenue right now. I think GMs are being kind of opportunistic and being like, okay, well, the owners probably doesn't want to lose even more money. I'll take $50 million off your hands for you, or whatever his contract is,
right? And
I'll give you some prospects, and so you can be good when there is a return to play and return of fans. So I think they're kind of sharks circling the water, being like, how can we take advantage of this? Because Barkov is a hell of a player. Like, he's offensively and defensively, he's such a good player.
Great two-way center, absolutely. And I think he only has 18 months left on his contract as well. So again,
that's short.
Yeah, I believe that's what I read, is 18 months left on that contract. So I agree. I think it's a money thing. I think teams are trying to see if there's some interest in Florida to shed the salary now, because they might not be able to afford to renew his contract when it comes up.
If you were Barkov, would you resign there?
Well, and I think it's got a lot to do with performance.
Barkov's performance or the team's?
The teams. I'm sorry. I thought I just cut out, and no one could hear me. I think it's got a lot to do with the team's performance. You see a lot of rumors going around, even about Keith Yandle not starting. Like, they were unhappy with how they came out of the playoffs last year in the qualifying round. Wasn't good. So I think they might be looking for like something to just mix that up or light a spot. Like they got rid of Trocheck last year. Barkov
they just got rid of.
Has been there for years. He's been amazing. He's not winning, right? And that's the same thing with the same thing with Yandle. Bringing Yandle in, not performing.
We're actually going to go to Yandle next year on our stuff, but Adam beat the transition in, so I don't even have to do it. But Yandle is the running Ironman in the league right now, and all of a sudden it came out that he was going to potentially be sat out for a game. It wasn't look like he was in part of the main squad's practice. The GM had informed him he wasn't going to be part of the team moving forward, and it also came out that there was some unhappiness, and they were really looking to kind of move on from him. And then bang, all of a sudden he's back in, and he does something magical. He scores a goal, which was a pretty big goal for him.
His 100th.
But yeah, it's his 100th goal, which is pretty impressive. And at the same time, his Ironman streak continues. But I don't know. Like, do you think this actually changes anything in Florida? Like, realistically, with him?
No, I don't think so. I think that relationship is kind of fried there. I think it was just like, okay, we could get more value if he's playing and teams can see what he can do. And, we don't want to be jerks that kind of ruin his Ironman streak. And so I think maybe they said, you know what, let him play, because why not? And I don't think it's gonna work with between those two, because you saw how happy he was when he scored.
Yeah.
I just don't understand why they wouldn't want Yandel. I mean, he was on pace for 53 points last season. He was 11th for scoring amongst defensemen. It's not like he's not producing.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just making the style of the team. Like, they want to try a different type of style. Like, how they played last year wasn't necessarily working for their goaltender. He was taking in lots of shots, he was laying lots of goals, but that might have been like the type of shots he was facing, specifically allowed by that defense. And maybe at the end of the day, Yandel's, as he gets older, is just going to become more one-dimensional than anything else, right? Like, you're not putting Yandel on your team because you want to shut down defensemen anymore. Like, he's kind of got that one style run here going. So I don't know. That's an interesting point, though. I wonder if public pressure played a role in it, because it seemed like the only time people talked about Florida was this. I don't know. You might have to cap it there, Ryan.
Check it out.
I was told that I have to describe things that you can't see if you're not listening. Ryan Pilon is turned to his left. He's opening up his several folders. He has 3 monitors set up in his basement. He's looking at the camera as he's typing, though, which is creepy. But he's doing a good job.
I'm just curious how much he's getting paid. I don't know what his contract is.
I'd say probably 6.
You think it's 6?
6.
What's the best? Okay, take a guess. Before you say it, don't say it yet. Well, okay. Adam, what's your guess?
6.4.
And how many more years?
83.
83
it's probably
more years.
for 4 more years. 4 more.
Sanjay?
I'll say $6 million for 3 more years.
I'll say 6.4 for 4 more years.
It's
5 more years.
6.35 for 3 more years.
I was close.
He is 34 years old.
So we all would have overpaid for Yandel. Well, it's Price is Right rules. We all went over, I think, didn't we?
No, I said 6.
Sunjay wins then.
Yeah. Sunjay wins. And I think you said 3 as well, didn't you?
I said 3, yeah.
Yeah.
Up to date in my Yandel contract news.
No.
Just your folder?
No.
Did you throw out your Beagle?
I said 4 years.
Behind you?
You like that?
Yeah,
but I found it. I said I better put that up there. I put it above.
Did you make other
What's
side?
going on?
Other side.
There you go. Because it's reversed, so the video's kind of reversed. There it is.
There we go. Yeah.
Dude, you make me so sad, Sunjay. Did you show that to Jay? You're like, look, I had some random person draw a picture of you.
He gave it to me.
Oh, he hands out his own photos of him. Like, is it a photo or a painting?
No, it's a photo.
Yeah, he hands out his own photos to you. Like, hey, man, thanks for being my friend. Here's a picture of me hoisting the Stanley Cup.
No, man, it was he gave it to me.
That's his
top 5 saddest things I've ever heard.
No, he gave
that's got to be his autograph. That's his new autograph.
Yeah, he's just testing it out.
He just draws pictures.
He's like, I'm not going to sign that jersey for you, but here's a picture of me holding a cup.
As he drives by. No, it was at the day of his, it's like, I don't know you, just keep going. No, it was at the day when I went over to his place when he had the Stanley Cup and he was handing them out. And I was like, well, I got one for like my brothers who couldn't go and stuff and like some family members. So I was like, well, I guess I'll take one too.
Well, we're still talking about Florida before we dissect it off here into stories about Beagle. Here's a fact that came out from an NHL Watcher. If you don't follow NHL Watcher on Twitter, it's like at @NHL_Watcher. A really great site, constant information, watches all the games, lots of facts. But came out with this fact, which was 173. Jonathan Huberdeau has 173 points in 152 games. That is a better rating than several top NHL players. Can you guys guess any of the NHL players that his points per game is higher than? He's like
current players or of all time?
Current players right now in the league. The Jonathan Huberdeau is out producing in Florida.
How many points was it? It was 170 points in 150
173 points
Let's
in 152
see, I would say he's
games.
Outperforming Zach Hyman. I would say he's...
yeah, for sure.
No, like, what are we supposed to do here?
Like, good players. Like, players that you think of as really hot. Matthews is one of the players that he is outproducing. Yes, in terms of points played. Austin Matthews is one of the players that he is outproducing. That's one of them. Can you name any of the other ones?
I'm
Give
gonna
you
go
a couple
Sidney
guesses.
Crosby.
Crosby's not on the list, so I don't know.
Draisaitl?
Nope.
I'm gonna go with Pedersen.
I'll give you hints for some teams.
Yeah, do
Avalanche,
that. There's like too many
Tampa,
players.
Avalanche,
McKinnon?
Tampa,
McKinnon.
and the Leafs, and Florida.
Well, Florida.
McKinnon, no.
Kucherov.
Rantanen.
Kucherov.
Rantanen is one of them. Not
Kucherov.
No. For the
Stamkos.
7th time. Not Stamkos.
Point.
And
Ooh.
the last two on this list, because it's slowly painful and Sunjay's not guessing.
We already did the
anything,
Leafs one, right?
It's probably
is,
gonna be
no,
like
there's
Johnny
two on the
Gaudreau.
Leafs.
Oh,
Tavares
Marner.
and
Oh,
Nylander.
Tavares and Barkov.
Oh,
Ooh.
Barkov's interesting.
That is interesting. And the thing is, you don't hear about Jonathan Huberdeau. Like,
Do you have him
Last
on
year
your
you
Team
did.
Canada?
Last year he was
Was he-
one of the top point getters, wasn't he?
that's an interesting point. Would I have him on my Team Canada? I didn't even know he was this good. And he always pops up on those lists, which makes you go like, okay, so people still love Jonathan Huberdeau. But I always thought he was going to become like a big name. Like he had such hype around him at the World Juniors. I thought this guy was going to be a huge
It's the Florida
superstar.
market, though, man. Like Barkov should be a bigger name too.
Yeah, that's true.
You're right. But can that market really kill you if you're that big of a superstar? If Connor McDavid's there, do like people still know who he is in Canada?
Oh, for sure. I think it's
Probably.
winning
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
Like look at Tampa. Everyone knows all the players on Tampa.
Yeah,
That's
that's
true.
true. Yeah, that's
That
true.
is very true. Winning plays a huge role in these things. But I am surprised he is that good. I mean, and like, so how can I argue against him on Team Canada? What say you guys?
And Baron, how many years did you say that you were including that points per game?
I said 152 games.
Okay.
In 152 games. That's the start of the
So 2
2018,
seasons.
2019 season. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense then. Yeah, like I know last year he was really on fire. I couldn't remember the year before that, but I guess he obviously did really well too. So
I'm just surprised. Like, I would have never guessed that. But I don't think, like, once again, I don't think about that market very often. I don't think about those players very often.
Yeah.
But would you put him on your Team Canada?
Yeah.
if I was going by last year's stats, yeah, I would have.
Just on stats? Is that all you do to make a team, Ryan?
Yep.
What happened to your draft?
Moneyball it. You can
always
moneyball
run
that to a
hockey draft?
champion.
You always run a hockey draft and you murdered it this year. Wow.
I did. I won both the regular season and playoffs
So you
Yeah,
just retired
based
it?
on stats.
So Sunjay and our listeners won't understand this, but Pilon does a card shuffle for each round. And
Not
then
anymore.
For some reason would always pick first or second.
I have
Maybe
never
at a bad
once
year,
picked
pick
first in
third.
my life.
In the rounds, you can pick first. You might not have been the first overall pick, but you might pick first in the second round. Don't pretend.
Ooh.
If I was
We know
A
how
last.
this works.
controversy here.
You know how much money I've lost to this snake down here? All those pictures
After
behind
Adam,
them, our money.
After Adam-
Mine and Adam's.
After Adam complained about the card shuffling, I changed it up, and now it's all automatic.
Oh, he
Oh
complains.
yeah, the card shuffling was absolutely awful. What would happen was Ryan would pick out 10 cards. He'd have 10 guys there. He'd be like, "Okay, guys, first round, you guys are picking in this order, and then just give me your cards back." And he'd have like one nicked out, and he'd be like,
Yeah, right.
"Here's my card. You'll deal them."
It-
Oh, look, it's a different order every round, and we'd be like, Ryan."
It
what?"
consistently
Oh,
built
and it
anticipation. Everyone was on the edge of their seats after every round to see what they got to pick next. It was
It
wonderful.
changed every year. One year, an ace is the high count. The next year, ace is the low
It
count.
just depends what I end up
Depending
with.
who pulled it.
Yeah.
Well, I have
I
a
see how it
jack, so
goes.
aces are low this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
House rules.
Oh,
So COVID's caused some interesting, what's the lack of a term, kerfluffles in the NHL, I guess you could say. It's caused a couple issues to occur, some problems. And one of the big ones that has occurred here actually has to do around goaltending in the NHL, specifically to the Edmonton Oilers in the North Division, the Scotiabank North Division. And I think it's kind of interesting. So I want to give you a breakdown of the events that occurred here. To kind of see what happened, and then you can go from there. But I think this is an interesting point. So essentially, when everyone was sending down their waivers for their taxi squads, the Oilers had signed a third goaltender in Forsberg to play backup to Koskinen and Smith, and they put him on waivers. At the same time, Carolina had decided that they did not want to lose their backup goalie and decided to put a claim in on Forsberg just in case, which is a smart preemptive move, essentially. So they put a claim in on Forsberg, knowing that they could get him back or have a goaltender that used to be in their system and keep him or whatever. But nobody put a claim in on their goaltender. And as such, they're now stuck with too many goaltenders. So what they end up doing is they put him on waivers again. But first, Corey Crawford, former Stanley Cup winner who had left Chicago after having a hell of a play-in round against the Edmonton Oilers, signs a deal with the Devils and decides, nah, hell it, I'm done. Something's going on, whatever. He's done. He's not playing anymore. He quits. Now they're short a goaltender. And so they have to pick up a goaltender. Since waiver wires work off of last year's grabs, this team ends up being able to pick up Forsberg. So now the Devils have picked up Forsberg, leaving the Oilers short at this, and then resulting in this isn't what caused it, but Mike Smith essentially gets injured right before he's supposed to play. And now the Oilers are stuck with only one goaltender of NHL experience and another goaltender who is never played an NHL game. And so now they're desperate for third. So the next little while they're scrambling. They end up picking up Troy, and I don't want to say his name if it's Grosenick, off of the LA Kings waiver wire. Since that's occurred, this is the next part, the Leafs have put in Aaron Dell, and our Oilers fans were superly hugely excited to hope that Aaron Dell would be grabbed. Yep. But once again, the Devils, having the better waiver position, picked up Aaron Dell, who is a legit NHL goaltender, off of waivers, and have now claimed him. It is likely that they are going to throw Forsberg back on waiver wires, which doesn't mean that the Oilers will get him. It means that the Oilers have a chance to get him.
And
is this entire situation is this crazy? Where are we at with this? What do people think?
It's insane. And actually, another tweet I saw was that Grosenick was going to be waiting at the border to see if the Oilers claimed Dell. That's even crazier, is that this guy was like, I'm going to wait at the border so I don't have to quarantine for the 14 days, just in case.
I have missed something in this, which is the Devils also claimed Comrie off of Winnipeg. And so it's likely that Comrie is actually going to be the one hucked on waivers again. That's the other weird part there. Are you surprised by this, that this has occurred? I think it goes all the way back that this is essentially caused by the Crawford retirement. That created a vacuum here. But are you surprised that this kind of carousel is occurring, especially given COVID and the situation?
No, I wasn't surprised. The Leafs weren't surprised either to lose Dell. They were trying to hide him on the roster. They had 3 goalies on the roster, but once Robertson got hurt, they had to put Dell on waivers to be able to get a shuffle going and get enough players in due to the cap constraints that they're under. But you could see what was happening. There's just a lack of NHL caliber goaltenders, and especially with the shortened season, you need your goalie depth. You really need it because your backup's going to be playing more, and you can't risk losing a goaltender to injury and then having to play an AHL goalie for a number of games right now.
Well, I think it's funny too, because you say that with 3 goaltenders, I think that sucked up most of the depth, right? Whereas you would be able to find a competent backup most years. This year, it's essentially a desert.
Which is funny. You would think, there's less goaltender positions. You would think there'd be an abundance of goaltenders, right? You would think it'd be harder to find a solid 4th line player because there's so many forwards being used up throughout the NHL. Goalies, you get 2 per team, and then whoever they have in the AHL after that. Why is there such a lack of goaltenders that can be trusted in playing in the NHL?
It's a position that has the least amount of spots. If I'm a defenseman, I have 6 spots on every team. If I'm a goaltender, I only got 2.
Well, that's what I'm saying is there's the least amount of spots. You would think there's a bunch of people waiting in the wing for those spots that are decent enough to play in the NHL.
It's interesting, but I wonder if they should carry the 3rd goalie forward from here, that you should have 3 goalies on your team. What do you think, Sunjay?
I don't know. I think this is just a special situation. I kind of like with what happened last year with the Leafs in Carolina, where they had to use the emergency backup goalie for a game. It's just kind of like a fun little, interesting, hockey quirk that they have. Carrying 3 goalies, I mean, the 3rd goalie, normally you have a farm system where they can play in the AHL. If a goalie's not playing for a while and then you got to force them in, it might be detrimental because they'll probably be cold. At least when you're carrying 2 goalies, the 3rd one can go get some work in and get called up, and it's not a big deal.
It's very rare for a team to lose both goalies in one game. But I tell you what, if Carolina lost that game when David Ayres was put in, I think you would have seen a much bigger push to be able to have 3 goaltenders in your lineup.
I was going to say, though, didn't they make moves to kind of stop something like that from occurring ever again? Because as soon as something big happens, whether it's John Scott being an all-star or David Ayres wearing a game, the NHL is like, oh, that's amazing. We love this. We'll celebrate this. Kill it. Just kill it.
No fun.
And they
no
stop
fun
it from
at all.
ever happening again. No one like something like John Scott will never happen again. Something like David Ayres will never happen again. But I can't remember. There was something they switched
I can't remember what they did
specifically
either.
about that. That's so weird. Yeah. I don't know why. They're too stuck on tradition sometimes, I think. But it was a big moment. But it is tough when a guy who has never played a professional game comes in and like wins you an NHL game. Like
Well,
you
it's hard
couldn't
on the
throw me on a
Leafs too,
soccer
right?
field.
Like you don't want to go
Lose
in there
them.
and light them up for 8 or 10, right? Like,
All right,
You're
I'm just looking up
embarrassing
the
the
rules
biggest
that they came up with.
franchise. You're embarrassing the biggest franchise in hockey when you do that, right?
the Montreal Canadiens
Like-
weren't embarrassed, were they?
Yes, they were. No, but global share of the market, the Leafs are bigger now. Just the weird side of it. Adam, you okay? You look like you've lost a piece of paper and you're just searching for it.
He's
No, I
looking
cut
up David
myself and
Ayres.
I cut myself and I don't know how I cut myself. So
Yeah, I was.
and I'm wearing a
wondering what
white
you were doing.
jersey. I'm bleeding. I'm wearing a white jersey. I don't want to get it's brand new, so I'm like,
Hold your hand away. Hold your hand away.
I was just looking at
Elevated.
TSN article that said the NHL general managers decided against an Ayres amendment.
Oh, they
for
didn't make
emergency
one.
goaltending rule. Yeah, so they only came
Oh,
up with
that's
this rule because of the taxi squad. But I guess there is actually no rule that the NHL came up with to make sure that Ayres situation doesn't happen again.
Now, given like the protocols though with the goaltenders and how hard it is to get across the border and quarantine, etc., I'm really quite surprised that goaltenders aren't shuffled back and forth a little bit more. Almost like you should be like, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll trade you this goaltender for future considerations. But if our guy goes down and you don't need him anymore, you trade him back for future considerations. I know you can't do that, but I mean, honestly, you can't tell me there's not backdoor deals being made all the time. Like, I don't understand. Like, to me, it just makes like Dell's jumping across borders.
I'm
got
surprised-
Forsberg jumping across borders. That's problematic, isn't it?
I'm surprised that Edmonton Oilers and Toronto Maple Leafs didn't put together some sort of trade for Dell, because Toronto had to know they were going to lose him on waivers for nothing, and Edmonton must have known that New Jersey was going to put a claim in.
Well, that's
Like-
what I mean.
Yeah, like why not make a trade? Like get a 4th round draft pick or a 5th round draft pick or something out of it at least.
Maybe Edmonton didn't want to give it up. Maybe they're like,
yeah, the foresight wasn't.
Well, I think that a big part of it is you don't trade against teams you play against. We already talked about that with Dubois. So the Leafs are now playing against the Oilers all the time. I think that's part of it. The other part of it is I wonder if there just isn't, I don't know, just isn't an appetite to care.
Well, I think you're
I
right,
don't-
Baron. That's a good point. I bet you Toronto didn't want to help Edmonton get wins, right? They want
And-
Edmonton to do poorly so that there's an extra playoff spot for them. So that totally makes sense. That's a good point.
If you move Dell to the Oilers and he spanks, like he's good, or he takes the top spot, then you're sitting there going,
What did I
And
do?
the Leafs and Oilers are
What
playing
did
twice
I
this
do?
week.
exactly. But that's kind of actually, that was some of the speculation as to why they might just get Dell, is that they literally could be like, stay in Toronto, we'll see you and pick you up.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But then
that
you know
could
Dell
still
would get
happen,
2
no?
shutouts, and
Yeah.
the Leafs would never hear the end of it. Like that would absolutely happen.
Yeah, it's very true. I do wonder if anything goes on from this. I am curious. Word out of Kevin Woodley, who was on the Jason Greger show in Edmonton, was talking about the guy they did pick up, Grosenick, and how he's worked a lot on his game. He's actually going to the same goalie coach that Mike Smith just switched to this year. But he's improved a lot in the last little while. And then a big push was the fact that the Kings signed him because they felt he had a chance to be an NHL goaltender. So we'll see. But for all indications are that this guy is probably going to be the guy till Smith comes back.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting.
well, didn't Edmonton try to get Howard Ken Holland asked Jimmy
Yes.
Howard, and he's like, you know what? I'm good, retired. I'm fine.
That was the best. There was a tweet about this where someone, I don't know who it was, but they said it was like, I got lots of hockey left in me. I'm ready to play. Like,
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, would you like to play for? I'm retired. It's like, I'm done. And I think that's a little bit hilarious. I was gonna do a little segment here called the PO mailbox, mostly because I don't want to, I don't know what else you'd call it. If I call it a mailbag, I'm ripping off somebody else. But PO mailbox, so that's the middle of nowhere, and that's great. But I did have a couple mailed in question inquiries that I'm going to just open up and read.
Like actually letter mail?
Legitimate.
Listeners?
From listeners. So
Who?
Is it your mom?
The first one here
Is
goes direct. My mom wouldn't waste her time listening to us. The first one here, and I'm going to be honest with you, there's a heavy flavor to these, and you can guess what it is by the jersey that I'm wearing. That's part of the reason I chose.
Oh,
the
no.
jersey today. So the first one comes from VanFan250, and it's directed straight to Adam. And it says, I'd like to direct my question to Adam. In the previous episode, you commented that you thought Winnipeg had the best goaltending tandem, even though Brisebois had a .895 save percentage in under 20 games. Would you still consider them a top goaltending tandem if Hellebuck plays 40 and 45 plus of the games?
No.
Why?
Say those numbers again.
He had a, where is it again? I was scrolling to the next one.
895, I think you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had an 895.
No, I mean,
But he's basically asking
save percentage in under 20 games.
if Hellebuck plays like almost all of the games, is it considered a tandem?
I think that's a fair way of putting it.
No, it's not considered a tandem. And I made the mistake. I was saying every team in Canada had the best damn goalie tandem. So take that question. I was wrong. Okay. And then I went to, who was it? It was
Montreal after that had the best goal.
Montreal after that, and they had the best tandem too. Why not? Spread the wealth, make the listeners happy.
Adam is Mr. Positivity, so everyone is the best.
This next one comes from Cousin Roy.
This next one.
And it says this. It's sticking to the same topic, though. In episode 1, you guys were very critical of the Canucks goaltending situation. In my opinion, I would say that they have one of the better true tandems in the division. Not best goalie, but best tandems. Do you think it could be a benefit to them in a condensed schedule, or are you convinced that they don't actually have good goaltending?
Well, I would say that I actually said I didn't think losing Markstrom hurt them as bad as most people thought. I said that Holtby had. Well, you look back, and that's exactly what I said. I said Holtby had one bad year, but the 3 years prior, his combined save percentage was .914. I felt he could bounce back, and Demko had an insane playoffs. He could potentially be the real deal as well. So I actually didn't think it would hurt as bad.
Sunjay?
Yeah, I think they've got a really.
Sorry.
Oh,
Adam,
no, go ahead, Adam.
No, I think their tandem's actually decent. I think it's middle of the road in this division. I think it might actually be enough to get them a spot in the playoffs if they play well in front of them. Holtby's played really great for them. Demko didn't have a great game against Edmonton in game number 2 for the Vancouver Canucks, but they could be good.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to Demko. We've seen goalies in the past have a hot playoffs. Brian Boucher comes to mind, Patrick Lalime. So, is he going to be one of those goalies, or is he going to be someone that, took the playoff experience and really runs with it and then turns into that solid number one? If I'm Vancouver right now, I'm probably rolling Holtby more often than not, and then throwing Demko in maybe like 20 games this year and just see how they go. I mean, it is a good luxury that if they do make the playoffs, their goaltender probably wouldn't be as tired as opposed to like a Markstrom, who's probably going to play 40 games this year for Calgary.
Final Canuck-based question comes from Brennan. He said I could say his name.
Oh, sweet. Good.
So it says, what are the panel's thoughts on Hoglander in Vancouver? Does he fill the void on their second line?
In the first game that the Vancouver Canucks played against the Edmonton Oilers, previous to that game, I picked him up as kind of a sleeper pick in a fantasy pool that I'm a part of. It's a keeper league. I picked him up and I was made fun of in my chat. That game, he got a goal and an assist. There was a lot of talk about him being on that second line and looking good on that second line in the preseason. That kid is fast and works hard. I think he is a fit for that second line. And I think he's a mainstay there for the rest of the season. I think he could. He's got the potential for sure.
Sunjay?
Yeah, I definitely think he. You noticed him out there watching him against Calgary on Saturday night. He was a difference maker. You noticed him on the power play. I just don't know with JT Miller. He's been out because of COVID precautions. That when he comes back, if he's going to take his spot on the second line, and then Hoglander gets pushed down to the third line, if he'll do as well on the third line. But I definitely think the kid's got something, and he should stay up all year in Vancouver.
John?
You have to give it to Vancouver. 2018, Besser was a finalist for the Calder. In 2019, Pedersen won the Calder. And in 2020, Hughes was a finalist for the Calder. Can Vancouver make it 4 seasons in a row? You never know. He definitely looks like he could be the real deal, and maybe he'll be up for the Calder.
I think it's going to be a tough year. Like, I really do for that. But that doesn't mean he won't get some love for it. I really don't. He's been good. Like,
and he was the 40th pick.
Sword. Yeah.
He was the 40th pick. It wasn't a first-round pick, so good on Vancouver. They've done some great drafting these past few seasons.
Their GM's a classic scout, though, and he does have a good history of that. Now, contracts, that's something a little bit different, though.
Yeah.
But
2016 draft,
everyone has
he
their
had a
strengths
miss,
and
but he's been
weaknesses.
making it up since then.
yeah, well, we all have misses on some drafts.
I just don't know
All right.
whoever goes to see the London Knights and sees Matthew Tkachuk and Yul Levy playing on the ice at the same time and be like, you know what? I'm not going to take Matthew Tkachuk. That's a.
But Yul Levy was
tough
picked
one.
after Tkachuk, wasn't he?
No, he's picked before.
Was it third?
It was, if I remember correctly, and I could be mistaken.
You're wrong. You're wrong on this.
Am I wrong or am I right? I don't know about this one.
Let me stop. Matthews, Laine, Dubois,
Yeah.
Puljujarvi.
Yeah.
Tkachuk went 5th.
I don't think so. I think Tkachuk went 6th, my man.
I bet you that jersey.
Okay, you guys can bet. I'll look it up.
What are we going
I
to
don't
bet?
want
$10?
that $10.
Okay.
Okay, I'll look it up here. Continue.
All right.
while
I
look
can't wait
this up.
to spend $10 from Baron,
Yeah.
and there's no
Oh, yeah.
tax on it either, Baron.
All right.
That's right. Yeah, you live in Alberta. There's no taxes on anything. I
Yeah.
understand.
All right, you guys ready?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, 2016 draft. First pick, Austin Matthews. Second, Patrick Laine. Third, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Fourth, Jesse Puljujarvi. And fifth, Olli Juolevi.
Dang it.
Dude, I know this because I always, laugh at Vancouver for doing that, and Edmonton for passing on him.
So confident, too. I was so confident he went
I was
5th.
scared.
I really was.
No, I don't think
Oh.
Calgary's drafted more than 5th. I think only like one time. Like I know like it was 6th because I was like, how could Edmonton and Vancouver pass on this kid? So
God,
Happy.
I hate you.
and I won $10.
All right.
You wouldn't
Matthew
rather have
Tkachuk
Jesse
is the gift
Puljujarvi?
that keeps on giving.
Surprises and upsets of this week. We're going to start with Adam. What are your surprises and upsets of the week?
My surprise was actually a guy that we talked about 2 minutes ago, which was Nils Hoglander of the Vancouver Canucks, and how he's kind of come on the scene. Like, he's fit into that team really well, producing. He's on the first unit power play, I believe. Fit in on that second line. He's a hard nose. Like, he's working hard and he's producing and creating chances. My upset is the Jacob Voracek presser, because he was very upset, I would say. I thought it was hilarious. I watched, and Konechny's reaction, best.
I sent
So
it
good.
to you, and your response was
I thought it was
fake,
dubbed.
fake and
I thought it
bold.
was dubbed. I
Yeah.
did. I thought it was dubbed, and then like everyone started like tweeting it. And when you sent it, I was like I was looking at his lips while he was saying it, and I'd play it over and over, and I was like, he's covering his mouth. You're like, is he saying these words? And it didn't seem to match at times. So I was like, whoa! But he actually said it, and that is my upset Voracek of the week.
I
on.
don't like that.
Let's hear yours.
My surprise this year, I would say so far, is the Pittsburgh Penguins. Usually you just peg them as making the playoffs, but they are not looking good right now. They have the worst goaltending in the league. Tristan Jarry has a .727 save percentage. Casey DeSmith has an .889. They have the worst overall 5-on-5 save percentage. And defensively, the team hasn't actually been that bad, but their goaltending is just failing them right now. So that would be my surprise. And then for upset, both in terms of the team that won as well as how I felt after the game, the Sens versus Leafs first game against each other. It was an upset in that Ottawa is supposed to be, they're pegged as the last place team in the Canadian division. The Leafs, most people are predicting them to be first, and Ottawa ran away with that game. And that made me very, very upset.
I won money on that game. I bet on Ottawa.
Screw you, Adam.
Sanjay?
I hope you lose that money.
Yeah. You want to bet me on a draft one, Adam?
Let's do it.
No.
My surprise of the week is how bad Chicago is. Like, I knew coming in they wouldn't be good. They may
lost
be
their
the worst
top
team in
two
the
centers.
league. What's that?
They lost their top 2 centers.
They still have Patrick Kane. They still have Duncan Keith. They still have, some talent there.
Can't think of anyone else. Who else is their talent?
That causes the best, and they still have
still have
some talent.
Talent? I don't know.
NHL players.
Is Sod play still
That's
there?
DeBrincat?
Seabrook
Is he
there?
playing?
No, Sod's in
Gone.
Colorado.
Traded.
Yeah, well, see, I'm surprised that he's gone. I'm just surprised at how bad. Like, I think they're going to be
Oh
last
my
in the league,
God.
and I think they're going to be last by a mile. I don't know. I thought like they beat Edmonton in the playoff round. Maybe they'll be okay this year, but losing Taves, I guess, hurts, and Kirby Doc hurts as well. So that's my
Doc hurts a
surprise.
lot.
That I knew they'd be bad, but not this bad. They're going to finish last. They're going to finish last. My upset of the week, I'm going to go with I'm still Pilons, but it was Ottawa taking out Toronto. I just didn't see it coming, but I guess it just goes to show that, one game, anything can happen, and Ottawa looked good that game. So
Luckily, the Leafs redeemed themselves that second game.
Yeah, I think that's going to be common this year. I mean, how many times in hockey have you had this sort of like baseball schedule structure?
Yeah.
And I think like a lot of teams won't sweep. Like if you played a team once and then you play them again in 2-3 weeks, you could probably win both those games, and there wouldn't be any carryover. But playing back to backs is going to be like a playoff series, and I think teams will be a lot closer in these like baseball series that they have set up, these home and homes.
I'm curious, guys, are you pumped to see these teams play each other 9 or 10 times, or do you think it's going to be kind of repetitive?
I think it's going to be repetitive. I don't think it's repetitive yet, but I think it will be repetitive because honestly, this has happened before. When they first came back after the lockout, not the half lockout, but the full lockout, they tried to do more region-orientated games, and people would not go because they'd be like, oh, it's the 6th time we're playing Calgary. I don't want to go. I've seen them twice already. And that's where I think it becomes an issue. Right now, there's no fans, so whatever.
Yeah, I think it will become an issue if there's no fire or sparks, or those rivalries don't start to formulate with those teams. That's what really made the Battle of Alberta reignite for me last year. Was you'd see these guys playing, there wouldn't really be that much fire, and last year it really sparked it back up for me with all the credit to Cuck for refiring that up.
Yeah.
Gross, Adam.
I'm going to take the opposite view. I don't think it's going to get old at all. For me, I'm actually more invested in games than I normally would, just from the fact that one team, every time someone plays, someone goes up 2 points, someone doesn't gain a point or maybe gains 1 point. And as a Flames fan, you're constantly checking the out-of-town score, where last year, if Toronto was playing Ottawa, I'd check the score, but I wouldn't be that invested in it. But now, as we get close...
Were you invested in Colorado versus the Kings for that reason?
Yeah, because I'd be if the Kings were battling Calgary for a playoff spot or something, I would be checking to see how they're doing.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, as we get closer to playoff time, every game's going to be so important that, it won't just be if Calgary's playing Winnipeg. It won't just be those two markets who are tuning in. Edmonton will be well, we got to catch one of these teams, or maybe we'll play one of these teams in the playoffs. So as an Oilers fan, if the Oilers aren't playing that day, you're probably going to check it out.
Oh, that's fair. All right, my surprises of the week. My surprise is actually going to go to a tweet by Dmitry Filipovic, which states this. You can follow him at @dim Filipovic. But Bruins and Stars are the only teams without an even strength goal this season, which is a problem for Boston since Dallas hasn't even played yet. So that's a pretty big surprise. Like, that's kind of crazy. And I will say that my two upsets this week will be, one, the Oilers power play has really not been what we thought it would be, even with Barry or somebody else. It is not clicking at all. So that's kind of an upset. And losing $10 to Sunjay on something that I was 100% sure of. I
Should have bet more. I don't know why I didn't be like, hey, let's bet like a jersey or something.
He did. He brought it up.
I was willing
Sunjay.
to
He
at
said,
the
I'll bet
time.
that
I was
jersey.
100% convinced. Never give a sucker an even break, Sunjay. Never give a sucker
Well, you got
an
me
even
second
break.
guessing. I was like, well, did he? And I was like, I don't know, but I was like 95% certain.
The thing with the Oilers
Yeah.
power play, you kind of had to expect them to regress a little bit this year because last year was the highest power play percentage they've ever had. So even
Look
if
how
they
much
were
it's regressed.
first place again this year, it would still have to regress a little bit, right?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I regress a little bit's fine, but it's regressed a lot. Like, they've had, I think, 2 power play goals in 4 games, and they've had a lot of power plays. All right, well, that's this week of the world of hockey. News you can use or not. I don't know. Whatever. I'm trying to watch hockey and talk at the same time. It's very hard. I'm still pissed off. I lost $10 to Sunjay on a stupid bet. I'm
$10.50.
so mad. Like, I'm just like, are you kidding me? I had it. Oh my God. So stupid. I'm gonna have to
Rookie.
hear about this from so many people I hate. Like, I just,
Rookie.
all right.
So
Well,
many people I hate. He
as
said.
I hear from it, I'm gonna hate them more.
Yeah,
I think I have you in my e-transfers. I'll send you your $10 tonight. So, all right.
Flash that
Well,
cash.
much love from
Show us
the
what
Delayed
you buy with
Offside
it.
family.
Yeah.
Oh, you
Yeah.
piece.
Next
Oh,
podcast, I want to
yeah.
see what you buy with that $10.
Yeah.
Film it. We'll
yeah.
air it. We'll
Yeah.
air what you going out to buy something with that $10.
Gonna debate what I'm gonna buy.
God.
Tune in next week, folks, to see what Sunjay
Yeah.
buys with Barron's $10.
Yeah, if you don't care for the hockey talk, at least do that. It could be a big reveal at the end of the episode. Here's this can of Coke that I drank. I put $20 in my car, so 5 of that went in there. And then
I bought a photocopy of the Beagle picture.
yeah, exactly.
One for each of you guys.
Maybe put it towards one of those cameos or one of the celebrity hockey players
Yeah.
that you love can talk to you. There's a guy I know who hates Max Pacioretty, and I would have spent $60 for Max Pacioretty to say happy birthday to him because I think it would be hilarious. But
Oh my
Max is on
God,
it,
that'd be so funny.
so be it. All right, with that, I'm Baron.
I'm Adam.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Sunjay.
Thanks for listening to Delayed Offside. See you guys next week.
Subscribe.
Oh, yeah.
Like and subscribe and comment.